Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. This is I think it's episode number 9, day after the Super Bowl of You Own It with Jerry Thompson. And first, congratulate to the Eagles. As a Buffalo Bills fan, thank you. So today, what I want to do is I want to talk about, get a little bit more into the weeds of day-to-day things that occur when you're thinking about buying a house. And I've talked about in episodes 1 through 8 process. If you're thinking about buying, process you should follow, how to stay on track. I've talked about selling things, marketing things, all the above. So if you are curious about more process-focused things, go to episode 1 through 8 if you own it. Today, I'm going to talk about things that, are often assumed by real estate agents and should not be. And so hopefully I can give you a little bit of an education on how to see a house. So if you're thinking about buying a home, oftentimes people start by scrolling the internet, homes.com, realtor.com, Zillow, century21.com, your local broker's website, whatever that might be. You find a website or you start to look at open house signs and drive-by houses and pick neighborhoods and school districts and things that you like. And I had an experience this weekend, which kind of I wanted to share. And then that led me into this podcast where what happened is there was somebody that was just starting to look. And I had a listing here in East Aurora. And that purchaser called me on the phone Saturday at 1:00 and said, "Hey, Jerry, we have an appointment to see your listing. We're standing here and there's nobody here." An initial blush, you'd think, well, Jerry, how come you weren't at the house? Ooh, what happened? This was a buyer that has not been in the marketplace. They were interested in the house, and they were on an app. They were on more than likely Zillow. They couldn't tell me the exact one, or Realtor.com. And they picked the house. They hit the button. Boop. I'm interested in an appointment on this house. And the calendar popped up saying, this house is available Saturday, and gave a list of times. And they hit 1:00 and the app said, you're set up for 1:00 on Saturday. Now, the dirty little secret of many of these real estate websites that you should be aware of is when you click on a button to set up an appointment through those sites, what they are doing is then selling your data to an agent in the market. That agent is probably not the agent that you think you're getting. Oftentimes you'll hit the button thinking you're getting the agent that has the listing, and you're hitting the button and you're getting an agent that's bought the zip code for leads, or is getting referrals, or has a relationship with that website, whatever site that will be. And so in this case, that buyer had set up an appointment through a website. They thought somebody was going to be there. The agent no-showed. So their first thought, as they looked at the sign and they saw my picture, was, why wouldn't Jerry be here? And they knew of me because they were local. So they called my cell phone off the sign and they said, hey, how come you're not here? And I said, well, I don't have an appointment with you. I don't have an appointment set up by any agent at this time. How did you do it? And what they had done is they had hit a button, set an appointment, gotten a confirmation from the website, and whoever got that at the other end could have been one of 2,600 agents in Western New York. Never set up the appointment for the house or put it in their calendar, or maybe never got the email. It might have gone to spam. So this poor buyer drove in to see a house and there was no appointment set up. So one of the first things I want to kind of give you a quick education on do's and don'ts in setting up appointments to see houses as buyers is do have an agent that you work with, so that you're not arbitrarily setting appointments up through websites. If you are setting them up through websites, don't assume it's the listing agent you're talking to, because it may not be. It may be a buyer's agent that has paid for the opportunity to set up appointments with you through that website. Because that's how websites like Zillow and Realtor.com, Homes.com is the exception. Homes.com is got a rule called your listing, your lead. So if you're a buyer, you go to Homes.com, you click on the button, you always are recommended or referred to the listing agent. Zillow and Realtor.com refer you to Zillow Premier agents, which are agents that are either paying for advertising or are part of a program where they distribute the leads to agents that are specialists, Zillow specialists in the area. And Realtor.com does the same thing. And a lot of the other companies' websites will have a listing that's not the lead. So if you go to what's called an IDX website, which let's say you went to one of the local companies here is Howard Hanna. Let's say you went to Howard Hanna's website. My listing is there. You may click on that site to set up an appointment, but they will give you to a Howard Hanna agent. None of that, by the way, is bad. It's just important that as a buyer that you understand when you click on websites to get information to set up appointments, if you're trying to get the listing agent, call the listing agent directly. If you are trying to get any agent, click on the button. So number one though, is if you want an agent of your own and you don't want any agent and you don't want to end up on that Saturday at 1:00 standing in front of a house where somebody's not there and you're calling the listing agent who does not have an appointment with you, do what I said way back in, I think, episode 1 or 2, sit down with an agent while you're starting the process, find out how this works, and see if you can get a commitment. A buyer's agent is going to work with you on any house that you want to set up. It means that you're clicking, instead of clicking a button, it's a text. Hey, Jerry, I'm interested in seeing this house Saturday at 1. Are you available? Why, yes, I am. Let's set that up. We are all confirmed. I'll see you Saturday at 1. You define who you are working with so you know who you're getting. So number one, when you're thinking about looking at a house, don't trust the websites, find an agent. If you don't want to have a specific agent, you're welcome to go to any website. And in 95% of the time, the agent that's getting that appointment request will show up there. And then they'll normally talk to you then right away about, hey, I'll have to be your buyer's agent on this house. They will usually bring out some forms to have you sign that assures them compensation. If you are trying to reach the listing agent, like you think, I'm just starting, I don't want to have an agent, I'm just going to go directly to the guy's name that's on the sign, you should know a couple of things. One, if you're going to the guy's name on the sign or the woman's name on the sign, you do not have an agent. Be respectful of their time. If you intend to go get an agent and not buy the house through the seller's agent because they don't represent you, oftentimes you're better off getting that agent up front. Because remember, the seller's agent is already showing their own clients multiple houses on a day, and their time is spent on the marketing end and the listing end of that house. And if you're going to go look at the house with them, more often than not, we're thrilled. As a listing agent, somebody lists a lot, I'm always happy to show a house to a buyer. But if the buyer knows that they're going to act with somebody else, I much prefer that they have somebody else involved right from the get-go. Because that Saturday appointment where you call the listing agent and say, hey, I don't have an agent. I want to see the house with you. Can you show it to me Saturday at 2:00? That means Saturday at 2:00, the listing agent is dropping something that they already have. It may be a family thing, maybe other appointments that they're not taking to show you the house when you're intending to buy it from your cousin Betty. If that's the case, call cousin Betty. It's a good do. It's good. It's a good thing to know. If you're going to have a buyer's agent, get a buyer's agent, and then stick with that buyer's agent. A lot of times people will misunderstand that. They'll think that well, the listing agent's happy to show the house. They are, but in every real estate transaction, a listing agent's I'm not normally thrilled if I've shown you a house and spent 2 hours with you, and then you tell me at the end of that appointment, well, if we make an offer, we're going to make it with Bill. Well, you should have had Bill there to begin with. I always smile about it and kind of say, that's fine, bring Bill in, because honestly, you have a right to be represented. And if you're in the living room talking to me about making an offer of the house and I have the listing, I do represent the seller. I do not represent you. So I'll always say that, hey, just so you know, you can make the offer with me, but if you make it, I'm not representing you. And you do have the right to go get that. And it won't be held against you or anything, but it's a good do from just a courtesy perspective. If you're going to look at houses, you're just starting and you're hitting website buttons, understand you don't know who you're getting. And whoever shows up is the website is dictating, not you. So it's always a good idea to kind of look at agents' reviews, interview agents first, get a commitment with an agent, And then you know who you're dealing with right from the get-go on any house you want to see. There's never that mystery. Who's showing up to meet me here at 1 o'clock? I hit this button on the website, they confirm the appointment, and somebody's not showing. Get pre-approved. So another do when you're starting to look at houses, even if you haven't made a commitment to list to agents yet. And by the way, when people are starting, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's the to just get a pre-approval and then kind of peruse and go to open houses. And if you want to set up an appointment with the listing agent, go ahead. But you should always, honesty is the best policy, I say. Somebody that calls me and says, look, hey, my agent's gone today and I really want to see this house. I'm pre-approved. I'm going to act on it. My agent's going to be back tomorrow. They don't have anybody in the office that can help me. Can you help me out and meet me there? I much more appreciate that than spending 2 hours with somebody that then drops the bomb at the end. Hey, thanks so much for spending the 2 hours. I'm going to call my agent and make the offer. I always get images in my head, right? I just spent 2 hours that I could have been otherwise out to lunch with my wife or driving my daughter somewhere she needed to be or just enjoying family time. That agent's been doing that on my dime, so to speak. So as much as you think, the listing agent just wants to be there to show you the house, be a little respectful of their time. If you think that it's going to be a buyer's agent you're going to bring in, try to get that buyer's agent up front. A professional will let it roll. I let it roll. I go, okay. But it does, that image just sit there a little bit. When you're pre-approved, it will let any agent know if you're not working with a specific agent, that if you're going to go look at that house with a listing agent, at the very least, that agent knows that they are spending quality time with somebody that might buy the house. And sellers, be respectful of the seller's time as well, because you have to remember, you have to think like a seller. If you're selling a house, when the house is being shown, you have to pack up your stuff, declutter, put all dishes out of the sink, in the dishwasher, clean up the bathrooms, make sure everything is A+ condition, grab the kids, grab the dog, leave the house, have the carpets vacuumed with their little lines in it so everything's perfect. And I always say when, they like to know that you're able to buy the house when they're going to go through that energy. Another do is show up on time. And it sounds like a normal assumption, but when you set up an appointment and some buyers just think, well, the agent's there showing the house multiple times. I'll give you a very specific example. Last week I had a house. It was actually a 6-unit in South Buffalo. And the 6-unit means that I have 6 tenants I need to call to set up an appointment. And those tenants prepare for the appointment. I set up an appointment for a buyer that had called me as a listing agent and said, I want to see the house. We set up an appointment Tuesday at 3 o'clock. There was a snowstorm coming in. South Buffalo is about a 20-minute drive for me. And the weather was getting pretty nasty. But as a Buffalo agent, it takes quite a blizzard to stop me from showing up to an appointment. I'll get there. And I went through the snow and I got to the house and it was 8 degrees out and the snow was coming down. It was 3 o'clock and I had tenants that had taken garbage out and had gotten everything kind of ready. And at 3:10, there's nobody there, still nobody there. And the buyer texts me, hey, is 4 o'clock okay? The answer was no. I had another appointment at 4:30 and I couldn't hang around 4 o'clock for him. The buyer, didn't give me a chance, hasn't texted me back or called when I said I can't do it at 4 o'clock to explain to them, the 6 tenants and I, 7 people you've held up 1 hour because you couldn't make an appointment on time. So good do is to be respectful of the sellers and the agent's time that you're going to show it and show up on time. I hear stories all the time in my office of agents that have shown up at a 2:30 appointment and they get a text that the buyers are going to show up at 3:15. There is a seller that's cleaned that house 70-80% of the time. The house isn't vacant. There's an agent that's reshuffled their entire schedule to be there for you. Show up on time. Part of winning offers and part of getting contracts and making sure that you get to buy the house that you want is showing the sellers and the agents involved in the transaction that you're serious about it and that you're going to be somebody that they want to deal with professionally for the next 60 to 90 days of their life to close the property. If you show up an hour late for the appointment, doesn't mean somebody's flight's not going to get delayed or their car tire is not going to go flat or something's going wrong. But I can tell you, there are buyers in this world that just notoriously show up for no reason whatsoever half an hour late. An agent never minds. I never mind if I'm at a house at 3 and, or I'm on the way there and at 2:30, the buyer texts me and says, hey, I can't make it. I'm running late. Somebody's sick. I have an emergency. I need to postpone. No problem. It's when you text 10 minutes after the appointment that you'll be there an hour later. Not a good look. And if there's multiple offers and your offer is about the same as the other, and you showed up an hour and 15 minutes late and that seller drove around in circles with the kids in the car, and the agent waited with you an hour and 15 minutes, and there's a choice, the guy that was professional, courteous, responsive, the one that just ignored everybody until it was at their own convenience, I can tell you who's winning. It's not the person that believes that people are on call for them, because they're not. So a good habit when you're looking at houses is to be timely and to communicate well with the agent, know who is showing you the house, and be qualified and well. Leave the property as you found it. So it's always a good idea. Because everybody's got different customs. As an agent, I always have buyers, and I'll say to you, if you looked at a house with me, hey, shoes off when you go in the door, or booties, something covering your feet so you don't track in anything from the outside to the inside of the house, mud, snow. Particularly this time of year, you can mess up a carpet pretty good, and a lot of sellers will have their house in A+ condition. Shoes off. Do not, although it's tempting, if you see peeling wallpaper and you want to see what's underneath it, don't peel it back more. If you see what might be hardwood floors under the floor, don't take a corner of the carpet and rip it up because it's still not your house. Let the agent deal with those questions. Don't stick your finger in drywall to see what let's poke a little hole in this drywall and see what the insulation is. It can be an issue where buyers come and look at houses with their agent, and either the buyers or the agent don't leave it exactly the way they found it. Lock the doors, and this is for agents and buyers. Your agent that's there should be responsible to help direct you on this stuff. Make sure that if there were lights off, lights are off and leaving. If there are lights are on, lights can stay on because you don't know what's coming behind you. So be respectful of the property. Leave it as you found it. Another great suggestion I would have is once you're done with the showing, if you're going to chat with the agent a bit, which often happens, take it out of the house, either to the curb so the seller can see that you're done. And if they're going to come back to the house, knows that they can come back to the house, or take it to the Tim Hortons or McDonald's or the office around the corner from the house to continue that conversation with the agent. Don't have an hour-long conversation with your agent in the living room. But when you're done with that showing, this is super crucial because I had this happen last week. Give your agent clear direction that there's interest in the property. And here's why. The listing broker might have 15 showings. They may have a deadline for offers Tuesday at 2:00, or they may not have any deadline for offers. If 12 of those showings give them feedback that they're not interested, and one of the remaining 3 makes an offer that's over list price, and the other 2 haven't responded to any feedback requests from the agent, the only assumption the seller and the agent can make is that those other 2 people aren't interested. So if you're interested in the property and there's no deadline and you don't tell your agent and your agent does not communicate that to the listing agent, the property can be sold without you. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a listing about 3 weeks ago, and there were, 8 to 10 showings over a weekend. And on Tuesday after the weekend, like 3 days after the weekend, we got a great offer. We had feedback from almost every showing except 1 or 2. The offer was well over list price. And my seller said, yeah, I'm good. Let's take it. We took it. We pended the house, meaning it was sold. It's off the market. Deposit was in. Attorneys approved it. And 5 days later, I'm sitting at my desk and an agent texts me, my buyer is interested in that house. Well, how the hell were we supposed to know? You looked at it 9 days ago. Now, could have been the agent just failed to let us know, even though they got 7 emails saying, please give us feedback. every day they were getting an email with a feedback request. Feedback. Don't get feedback? What are we to do? If there's 100 showings, are we supposed to call every showing? No, it's difficult to do. So if you're a buyer, to protect your interest, give your agent clear direction, whether or not, even if you're not sure you want to make an offer, you're thinking about it. If you want them to communicate, your buyer's agent to communicate with the listing agent that you have interest and to keep you in the loop. Keep me in the loop keeps you in the loop. If an offer comes in, your agent will get the text. Hey, an offer's come in. If you say nothing and don't give any direction to the agent at all, if the agent doesn't have a gut feel that you're interested, they may not communicate with the listing agent. And if you think about it for 2 days and then you decide, we really want that house, I've just thought about it so much, I can't get it out of my mind, and it's gone, it's because of not clear direction. When you're looking at a house, give clear direction at the conclusion of the appointment. We are interested, or we are not, or we are maybe. And if we're maybe, tell your agent, keep the listing agent in the loop. Ask clear questions. So this is an important topic to discuss when you are a prospective buyer and you're looking at a house. Oftentimes people looking to buy a house will Google online things to ask when you're looking at a house, right? And I always say there's two types of questions. There are specific objections. Those are questions that need to be answered for you to buy the house. You're worried about the age of the roof. It may need a new roof. You want to know the age of the roof, because if it's a certain age, you're not going to buy the house. That's an important question. That's a question you should be clear and ask the agent. There are questions that are not. They're just conversation, right? Geez, I wonder how old this wallpaper is. Are you going to buy the house if the wallpaper is 50 years old versus 25? Probably, right? So be clear to your agent as well. What questions are important to you and what questions are just questions? Because your agent should have a list. If you're really interested in the house and you have specific questions, they should have a list. And if they're reaching out to a listing agent that's getting questions from 15 people because there's going to be multiple offers, when you ask a question, try to make sure that it's an important question in the decision process for you, not just busy work. And I know a lot of this sounds a little bit, it's common sense for a lot of you because many of you are organized and detailed and recognize the value of that 15 minutes in your day. But it will help you to look at a house effectively. And it will also help you to be in the loop when you see that house with the listing broker. It'll help your buyer's agent to define and ask questions on ones that are important. And also the agent will know if you like the house pretty quickly or not. The other is if you don't like the house at all and there's no way, do not hang around the house for an hour and a half. Just go, leave. It can give the seller the impression you love the house if you're in the house for an hour and a half talking about, whatever with your agent. And the seller will be excited. Oh, that buyer's there for an hour and a half. They must love my house. And it was just, like I said, take it off site if you're going to do that. Now, let me go to don'ts. Things you don't want to do if you're thinking about buying and starting out and searching. Do not trust the website. The websites presenting the house are not entirely accurate. A lot of them aggregate data from multiple sources, and all those sources are not necessarily the listing agent. So if you might go on to 3 different websites and get 3 different total taxes. Well, why is that, you might say? Did the listing agent make a mistake? No. Sometimes you have different aggregations. Like you might go to Realtor.com and they don't have the Village of East Aurora taxes on a house that's in the Village of East Aurora. So they might say the taxes on the property are $4,200 when they're really $5,500. They're missing 1/3 of the taxes. Another site might use a different algorithm and give you an estimate based on assessed valuations. The best way to get the exact data is from your licensed agent that's getting it directly from the multiple listing system. And even then, I always say trust but verify. Meaning if the listing says the taxes are $4,200, it's a good question. It's a good direct question. Are the taxes $4,200 without exemptions, without a veterans or a stars, or are they $4,200 with the exemptions? Makes a big difference in your monthly payment. Don't trust the website when you click it to set the appointment up that the agent that shows up is going to be the listing agent. 95% of the time, it is not. It is whoever has paid for the click result. Just like a Google ad or anything else. That's the agents, that's 2,600 in Western New York, pay for the opportunity to meet people that are thinking about buying. And oftentimes, the largest, most productive agents don't need to pay a lot for that opportunity because they get the opportunity anyways because their signs are everywhere. So a lot of times when you click that site, you don't necessarily know the agent that you're going to get. So don't trust the click is going to get you an agent that you want. Go back to your do, which is look at reviews, look at recommendations, hire an agent that makes some sense, that you trust and like, and proceed forward with them. Don't, in the circumstance where a seller is around the property, have what I call over-the-top polite conversations with the seller. And what I mean by that is sometimes a seller, especially not in the winter months as much, but in the summer months, might hang out in the back patio while you're seeing the house. And you walk in the living room and you're showing a house. Let's say I'm showing you a house and we go through 3 rooms and you look at me and like, not the house for me. And I whisper, well, let's take a look at the house just in case there's a oil well in the basement. And out of respect for the seller preparing it, just make sure we're not missing something that would change your mind. But as soon as we walk out in that back patio, do not go, oh, thank you so much for showing your house. I love it. It's just so beautiful. I know human nature is to compliment people on their house. But if you compliment them on a showing, that seller is thinking, oh, they're interested. And then immediately they call their listing agent and they say, Jerry Thompson was just here with the buyer and the buyer really liked the house. They told me so on the back patio. Then that listing agent calls me and I say, oh, no, we weren't interested. Don't give sellers, out of courtesy, don't give them the sense that there's interest. Just say, thanks so much for showing the house. We appreciate it. And then let your agent say to the seller, hey, thanks so much. We really appreciate it, Mr. Johnson. I know you're on the back patio, but you're more than welcome to come back in. We're done with the showing. That's it. Any feedback can be given by your agent to the seller's agent who can interpret it any way they choose to the seller. This is a don't, but it's not always a don't. So if you are a buyer and you have an agent and you want to see a listing, don't call the listing agent to show you the house. You have an agent. Let them do their job. My favorite call, and this may sound a little facetious, my favorite call, and if any of you have ever, if you watch the podcast, if you ever talk to me, I'm never difficult with anybody. And I try to help people. My reputation in the business is being helpful. And I don't mind if there's a real true issue helping another agent out so that they can sell a house to their buyer. Never do. But one of my calls is that you get often, as somebody that lists a lot of houses, I get this call a lot. And it can be a little aggravating. Hi, this is Jane. I'd like to see your listing on such and such. Great. When would you like to see it? Sunday at 2:00. Great. Do you have an agent, Jane? Oh, yes, I do, but I don't want to waste their time. Right? So it's okay that because I have the listing, that I'm going to go spend an hour time with you, even though I don't represent you. It also, there's 2 reasons why you don't want to do it. One is as a seller's agent and a good salesperson, within 10 or 15 minutes in that house, I know whether or not you're really gung-ho about it, you're going to buy it or not. And if you're represented by your buyer's agent, you don't want to open that door because you can try to negotiate in something. And I've already got a pace as to what you're trying to do. I already know. Whether I let on it or not, I'm not going to tell you that directly. But just as you experience, an experienced salesperson through the years, it's like being a poker player reading a bluff, right? You get a sense. There's twitches, there's eye movement, there's There's things that people do that are keys that you just kind of, you get the vibe, man, And two, it's not really respectful of the lister's time, who honestly has buyers that they work with on their own and are also out showing your agents listings. So if your agent's working with you, and I would tell you, every single buyer's agent that works with buyers do not want you going to the listing agent. They want to show you the house. They want to show you the house. It is not wasting their time. And if you have an agent that says to you that they're wasting your time by going with you when you're working with them, I would tell you, get another agent. But if you have an agent you're working with and you want to see a house, go with them. Don't call the listing broker. And sometimes you'll call another broker thinking it's a listing broker, or you'll hit the website thinking it's a listing broker selling the house, showing the house. And you'll end up with another buyer's agent from another company that has nothing to do with the listing, that has no economic benefit showing you the house, and you never intend to buy it from them. So don't just go to the website and click, and don't just go directly to the listing agent, because you don't want to waste your buyer's agent's time. That's what your buyer's agent is going to ultimately get paid to do, to give you their time. That does not mean a listing agent in a bind won't help somebody out. I get calls all the time. Tell that listing agent the truth. Hey, my buyer's agent is gone to their kids' college graduation for the weekend. I really want the house. I'm excited about it. I don't mind going with you. I don't want to bother them because of the situation they're going through right now. Can you do me a favor and show it to me at your convenience? 100%. Absolutely. Remember, I'm still a seller's agent. Represent them. And any vibes you give me, I'm gonna have a sense of it. But happy to help people buy a house. And most good agents are happy to help people buy a house. It's just, don't act like your agent doesn't have time and the listing agent does. It's a big don't. The listing agent's very, very busy. I had somebody a couple weeks ago threaten me a bad review because they said they had a buyer's agent that they just weren't going to look at the house with. And I said, well, I'm sure your buyer's agent would want to show the house to you, don't you think? Especially if you're going to make an offer. And they said, whoa, I'm going to give you a bad review because you're the listing agent. You should just show up at the house. And I was not in town. I was 3 hours away. I said, I can't do it right now. And I certainly can't get somebody that works with me to do it when they're not going to get paid anything. I'm happy to do it at a time that's convenient to me. And I thought, you're going to give me a bad review? You're not my client. My client is the seller. I'm going to go show the house if you need me to. But it's not going to be me driving back 3 hours from somewhere I am that's important on a Saturday afternoon because you can't call your buyer's agent. That's a good don't. Try to be respectful of both agents' time. But if you have a buyer's agent, they should be more than willing to show you the houses. They want to show you the houses. They don't want to subject you to the agent that does not represent you. And they also want to see the house you're going to buy. How do they give you advice without showing you the house? They have to go there anyways. They have to see it. They can't give you advice and guidance on price unless they've seen the house. Try not to look at what you can't afford. So if you're setting an appointment, if you're qualified for $500,000, try not to look at $750,000 houses. They spoil you, and then you make comparisons. It's hard to get that kitchen, the $750,000 kitchen, out of your mind. Look at things that are in your price range so you can do an apples-to-apples comparison and get a good, solid feel for what you get for the money. Don't drive a Mercedes if you're going to buy a Kia because you want the Mercedes. But if you're not going to spend that much, there's a price for that. Where if you're looking at Kias, look at other cars, look at other cars in that price range and make a choice based on what you can afford as to the one that's the best value for you. And another don't is try not to expect instant showing, I call it. I know Amazon, you hit a button and the package shows up. And agents are going that way. A good buyer's agent, if you're working with a good buyer's agent, you should hit the text. That agent responds usually within seconds, and then figure out a time that's going to happen. But try not to, if you're just starting to look for buy, you're in front of a house, you pull over, you see the sign, you call the listing agent, you say, hey, this is Bob, I'm in front of your sign. What's the price? Oh, the price is X. Can I see it now? It's hard to have that happen. And I'll tell you why. One, most of the time the house is occupied by a homeowner who is, if they don't have showings that afternoon, they might be sitting down to watch a football game. They got nachos on the table. They have a pizza ordered. They have a beer in their hand. They're going to relax for the afternoon. They have nobody's requested a showing. The carpet's a little dirty. The bathroom's still got a towel hanging on the rack. It's not ready to be shown. The beds aren't made. And you say, I want to see it now. You get a hold of an agent. The agent tries to set up the appointment within 15 minutes to meet you there. That seller has to either A, scramble for the short notice to be properly prepared to show you the house in the best way, or already be prepared. Doesn't mean you can't ask, but don't expect it to happen all the time. More often than not, it'll take a day's notice to get a proper showing with the house prepared and the seller out of the way. Call on Saturday to see on a Sunday. Call on a Friday to see on a Saturday. Call on a Sunday to see on a Monday. If the house is empty and you get a hold of somebody and they can't do it right away, find an alternative time. But instant showing it doesn't happen often. It's hard to do. Occasionally you get lucky. I got a call on Saturday from somebody that, can I see this house? And I said, it just so happens I'm on the way to it. I'm going to be there from 10:30 to 11. Can you make it at 11:05? And he's like, great. I'll meet you there at 11:05. That's what happened. But a good agent will say to you if they can't do it, hey, can't do it immediately. I need to get confirmation to the seller. My schedule's a little tied up from 2 to 4. Can we do it tomorrow at 11 a.m.? And unless the house has got a deadline on it, and more than likely, and the deadline is today, more than likely, you're better off just kind of pacing that appointment, scheduling a proper appointment like you would any other appointment. So those are my, if you're thinking about buying a house, and hopefully I've given you a little bit of an education, kind of an insider education, things that are, if you want to win friends and influence people, I always say it's golden rule, right? Be courteous, respect the sellers of the property, respect the listing agent's time, respect your buyer's agent's time, but expect them to provide services that they promised you in the buyer's agency agreement. Have an agent, be pre-approved, look at stuff you can afford, be clear and concise in your questions and your direction to the agent, and you'll have much more success, least stressful transactions than if it's, I always say cart before the horse, if it's always a scramble. Saturday at 2, need to see the house at 2:30, not pre-approved, need to have a bid in by 5. Now I need to get a contract. Who am I going to make the offer with? Am I going to make the offer with the listing agent? Am I going to find a buyer's agent? What am I going to do? It's playing catch up. If you picture buying a house like going from the bottom of the staircase to the top, it's very hard to start at the bottom Saturday at 2 and end up at the top by Saturday at 4. It's not impossible, but it's very hard. And all those steps between being in front of the sign and wanting to buy it or seeing it on the website to buying the house require pre-approval, agent, looking, questions, direct questions, proper presentation of the house, proper offer, proper format, negotiation. All of it takes a little bit of time. So in a lot of these do's and don'ts are things to, just be clear about. Give your agent clear direction after you've seen the house. Are they interested? Are they not? Right? Have a pre-approval. Try to commit and work with one agent. If you like somebody that's a real estate agent and you like to work with them, work with them. There's no advantage to having 5 agents look for a property to you. They're all looking at the same properties, by the way. There's no secret to getting some sneaky deal. It's about having somebody that's a good agent for you that you're comfortable with. And then being respectful of the seller's property, being respectful of their time. And that goes a long ways by following the golden rule to getting you the house that you want. And it's also a lot less stressful. So thanks for listening. I always appreciate you tuning in to You Own It on either the YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and good luck house hunting. Thanks much. Thank you so much for tuning in to You Own It. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any resources mentioned during the show. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on your favorite podcast apps, and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and greatest. All of our social channels are clickable in the show notes as well. I'd also like to remind you to check out our website, c21jerry.com. There you'll find more info on me as well as my latest listings for all of Western New York. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, through any big decision, you own it.